Family Guy has, more often than not, leaned into controversy. And that kind of got me thinking, which episodes from the series are generally considered the most controversial? From an episode getting completely banned in the US to another episode that seemed to make fun of a massive tragedy, things have gotten super offensive with some of these Family Guy episodes. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So let's dive into 5 of Family Guy's most controversial episodes. 5. Screams of Silence, the Brenda Q story. Based on the reactions it's garnered over the past decade, this episode has been considered one of the most provocative episodes of Family Guy. Why? Well, contrary to the more tongue-in-cheek point of view the series tends to lean towards, this episode tackles a much more serious subject: domestic violence. Released on October 30th, 2011, Season 10, Episode 3, Screams of Silence, the Story of Brenda Q, is an episode based mainly around Brenda Quagmire, the sister of Glenn Quagmire, who is in a relationship with a man named Jeff. This man, sadly, turns out to be abusive. The showrunners intended to portray the topic of domestic violence with seriousness, but most people believed it only worsened things. Some critics were annoyed for several reasons, including the show's sense of humor. Most of the time, as comedies tend to do, the show tries to make jokes in an attempt to lessen serious issues. But here it portrays violence and abuse in a very crude manner. Some people were complaining that it wasn't funny enough, and rather that it was really too dark and too uneasy to watch. The main storyline of the episode was highly dramatic, and was very different from the Family Guy standard. So the plot revolves around the character Brenda, who gets beaten up both physically and emotionally by Jeff, a character who's something of a psychopath. The situation deteriorates to the extent where Quagmire, Peter, Joe, and Cleveland have to act by planning to murder Jeff to death to free Brenda. Some people found this theme undesirable, as they did not believe that a simple act of revenge reflected the full, accurate picture of a domestic abuse case. Another criticism that was raised was that the episode made light of this issue, saying that these scars from domestic violence were just fake. Another controversy was Wendy Walsh criticizing the show for portraying Brenda as a stupid woman too dumb to dump her abuser, insisting the show was far too simplistic in depicting the psychological mind games that victims are subject to. As for the comments, Nando DeFino, writing for Mediaite, said he wished the episode was never aired, comparing it to other episodes of the series which were banned for their controversies. 4. Turban Cowboy. Season 11, Episode 15, Turban Cowboy aired March 17, 2013. This episode is quite infamous for 2 particular things. The first one being intolerance towards Muslims, and the second one being a rather tasteless joke regarding the Boston Marathon bombing. The episode sees Peter befriend a Muslim man named Mahmood, who persuades him to become Muslim. Continuing in the episode, Peter becomes involved in a terrorist scheme and wakes up to the fact that Mahmood intends to detonate a bridge in Quahog. Unfortunately, the image of Mahmood along with the storyline just sort of reinforces stereotypes, causing many viewers to critique it as racist and Islamophobic. Perhaps the harshest scene in the episode is a short flashback where Peter runs over the Boston Marathon participants with his car. This scene raised a lot of controversy, especially when you look at the fact that the show aired a month before the actual marathon bombing on April 15th, 2013. Worse yet, there is a doctored video clip in which the marathon scene is linked with another segment in the episode when Peter blows up buildings with his cell phone. This fake video went viral on social networks, and some people thought that Family Guy had either predicted the Boston Marathon bombing or incited it. Family Guy's creator Seth MacFarlane spoke out and condemned this malicious hoax, while YouTube had a series of these manipulated video clips delisted to avoid the continuation of such information abuse. Fox and Hulu would remove the episode from availability for a time, but it was ultimately restored in September of 2022. 3. Life of Brian. Season 12, Episode 6, Life of Brian aired November 24th, 2013. And it brought a lot of controversy to the show due to the death of Brian Griffin, one of the most popular characters in the show and honestly, TV at large. Strangely, he dies in this episode only to be resurrected a few episodes later. So the big part of the episode revolves around a speeding car that hits and leads to Brian's death. Stewie soon comes to the conclusion that he can't save Brian since he had disassembled his time machine earlier in the episode. The family then buys a new dog known as Vinny, who's voiced by Tony Sirico of The Sopranos fame, but many viewers weren't exactly thrilled by this change in the status quo. They felt that Vinny just wasn't in the same league as Brian, the character that many of them had grown up with. There were several factors that really helped to boost this controversy. First, there was the ultimate surprise of it all. A lot of the time when a series like this kills off a major character, they use the whole thing to build publicity, to bring in an audience who would want to see which character would die. Like in the, at the time of writing this, recent Simpsons episode that promised that one of Homer's friends would die. But apart from the surprise of it all, Brian was still kind of serving, at that time, a sort of voice of reason type of character. Yeah, he wasn't nearly as reasonable as he once was, Flanderization is a bitch, but still, that's sort of who he was. And the next few episodes really cemented in just how big of a Brian-shaped hole was left following his death. This was huge at the time, and I've talked about it, I think, more than once on the channel in the past. But this made the news. People immediately unleashed their fury, stating their disappointment on Twitter and other social platforms. Some of those involved in the show said that the creators had deceived them. A petition was created to bring Brian back as fast as possible, and people showed a lot of interest in it. The petition essentially asserting that something that made the viewer's life a bit brighter would be less so without Brian. Some fans and critics believed that the showrunners had killed Brian just to make the show more popular and generate interest. This was seemingly proven true when Brian was only absent for 2 episodes before his return in Christmas Guy, where Stewie, through time travel, was able to bring Brian back. This was felt by many as an erasure of the seriousness of the death of the character, which just made matters worse. Seth MacFarlane, the show's creator, later explained that the plot twist was meant to remind viewers that Family Guy could still surprise and emotionally engage them, and that it was supposed to remind people not to take their loved ones for granted. Reactions to the episode were mixed. Some viewers praised it for being bold and emotionally powerful, while others slammed it for being cynical and manipulating their feelings. 2. When You Wish Upon a Weinstein. Season 3, Episode 22, When You Wish Upon a Weinstein, shows that just about since its inception, Family Guy has gone out of its way to not shy away from controversy. This is among the most controversial episodes for its outrageous portrayal of several Jewish stereotypes in media. The episode involves Peter incurring a loss through a scam where he buys volcano insurance, and he begins looking for some financial advice. In typical Family Guy fashion, Peter decides to buy into stereotypes and concludes what he needs is a Jewish accountant. This resulted in a song that was one of the show's biggest controversies. I Need a Jew, a clear parody of Disney's When You Wish Upon a Star from Pinocchio. The lyrics as well as the subject matter of the song angered many. However, the conflict was not limited to accusations of anti-Semitism only, as it extended to the media coverage of the episode as well. The episode was surrounded by controversies and some legal issues with the Bourne Company music publishers who own the rights to When You Wish Upon a Star. They sued Fox for copying their song with a similar tune and claiming that the underlying message of I Need a Jew was vulgar and thus demeaned the value of When You Wish Upon a Star. A US district judge in 2009 supported Fox by stating that it was a parody and therefore was protected under fair use law. To avoid backlash, the creator, Seth MacFarlane, mentioned in DVD commentary that during the episode's production he actually sought the assistance of Jewish rabbis on the content of the episode, and stated that the program intended to portray the character of Peter as crude and insensitive. The critics, however, ruled with the argument that the episode in question encouraged stereotyping. 1. Partial Terms of Endearment. Season 8, Episode 21. The only episode of Family Guy that is actually completely banned in both streaming and reruns. This is the episode that fans remember as one of the most provocative episodes regarding the show's subject matter. The episode that decided to talk about abortion. In the storyline, Lois agrees to become a surrogate for her friend Naomi and Naomi's husband Dale in exchange for $50,000. However, as it often goes in such soap operas, the couple meets a tragic and ultimately untimely death in a car accident, and Lois is saddled with the difficult decision of whether or not to see the pregnancy through to term. This results in a conversation where, surprisingly, Peter comes out as staunchly pro-life after being in a pro-life rally very briefly. Looking at the circumstances, it's important to note that the main source of the controversy comes from the show's intent and brutal way of presenting abortion, which, if you looked outside at all in the good old US of A at any point in the last 150 years or so, has remained a, we'll say, hot button issue. It was also expected that the show's sponsors and TV viewers might be offended by the show's content. Thus, Fox executives canceled the episode from airing across the states. This was due to the network being keen on minimizing every other controversy, especially during a period when the economy was experiencing some turbulence, which is seriously a major reason they decided to shy away from the episode. Partial Terms of Endearment was banned from being aired on US television, but the episode was aired in the United Kingdom on BBC Three in June of 2010, and a DVD release in the US was also made available. Through these two platforms, the episode did manage to reach the public, but remained a controversy. When asked about the episode, Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, explained that the primary goal of such an episode is to focus on a serious problem in society while providing commentary in a lighthearted manner, the same reason he gives about basically any controversy. But none of that stopped the episode from becoming a bit hard to watch. But anyways, this has been 10K Bill, and thanks for watching. Comment down below what you'd like to hear me talk about next, follow me on Twitter at 10kbill, and of course, make sure you subscribe for all your entertainment-related content.